Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie. It is Championship Sunday in the NFL. 4 teams fighting for their right to play on Super Sunday. 2 of them are going to be disappointed, and 2 of them will be celebrating. Many a storyline, backstory, and we're going to bring it to you. We also going to hit on some NBA report cards. Coaching carousel in the NFL, a lot of new faces, old and young alike. And we're going to talk a little bit about if the MLB Hall of Fame is a little too much to becoming the Hall of Very Good. With me, my good friend, upstate New York, Mr. Ryan Shedd. How are you, bud? Good to see you.
Hey, happy to be here, fellas. And so I this happens to be my segment where I like to talk about the upstate New York weather. So I'm going to continue that trend.
Bring it.
So it has been freezing cold up here. It was minus 13 the other day. But today, the weather's not too bad. If the Kansas City Chiefs game and Buffalo Bills game was being held in Buffalo today, I think the game would be a little bit different than it will be this evening in Kansas City. So watch out for the frostbite over there.
Random news about me, former host of the show, my good friend Jordan Patrick, aggressively bought 2 tickets for a spring training game. He said, "You're coming because I bought you a ticket."
All right.
Toronto Blue Jays, Tampa Bay Rays. Why does that matter to me? My favorite baseball player of all time, as well as your man Hot Rod up north, Don Mattingly, does coach with the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm going to make it a point to get there nice and early and go fanboy mode and finally meet my baseball hero. Albeit wearing the wrong uniform, it has always hurt my heart that Mr. Mattingly is no longer a member of the Yankee organization. But lots to cover today, Shad. I'm looking forward to it. Going to give you guys a minute to enjoy this video, and we'll be right back. Okay.
For those 80s,
lineup?
yeah, these 80s, 90s folks will know exactly what this is. My brother found this because Mattingly was my favorite baseball player growing up as well. At a pawn shop or something like that, like a little odds and ends shop, and saw this and thought I needed to have it. So my brother bought that for me, and it now hangs in the man cave.
Shout out to our fantasy commissioner out here in Florida, John Olson. He's on the mend. He's getting better. We love you, John. I also wanted to say that he was able to negotiate a nice little Don Mattingly figurine for me that was autographed that had a slight chip in the bat. So he was able to finagle that. Cool gift that I have. And I also have a pretty cool one in the podcast room of he and Daryl, 1987 All-Star game when Daryl was a member of the Mets. Obviously, Mattingly only played for the Yankees. So, 2 faces of 2 New York franchises. And just a cool pick, man. Really cool pick. But we're going to start this up since we got baseball on the brain, starting it up with potentially the Hall of Very Good. We're going to weigh in on this. We've seen it lately where post-steroid era, and then you got the betting stuff with Pete Rose, who did sign way back in the day that a consent thing that he would never be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, can they overturn that? I don't know. They can do whatever they want, I guess. But do you think there's some validity to this, that Major League Baseball has lowered their standards while keeping some of the greatest to ever play the game out of the Hall?
I think a lot of it has to do with the era that they played in. Ichiro, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I have no problem with him getting him in the Hall. Some people have different opinions on CC Sabathia. The reason why I would say he is a Hall of Famer is, the over 3,000 strikeouts, the over 250 wins. I mean, in today's era, I don't know if you're going to see anybody pitch that long and have that many wins. I mean, he had a 61% winning percentage. I mean, people don't even pitch barely 5 innings anymore. You know what I mean? So trying to get to 250 wins, let alone 300, which was the standard back in the 90s and stuff. Like, I don't know if you're going to see it anymore. And CC hit those numbers, those milestones. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, one of only 3 left-handed pitchers to achieve 3,000 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I personally think that if he didn't have issues with his weight, he may have played longer. Those are 2 pros, goes without saying. Dominance factor for a little bit, particularly when he first came over to the Yankees after having a cup of coffee with the Milwaukee Brewers during the trade deadline of 2008 and kind of like upping his stock. CC even hit a couple of long balls during that Brewers playoff run. And it really upped his stock. He started the first decade of his career as a member of the former Cleveland Indians, who are now the Guardians. He actually played longer in the Bronx, and obviously will be going in as a Yankee, being that it was the only place where he won a World Series, which was his first year in 2009. Yankees were close quite a few years after that to adding to the hardware, but they have not won anything since 2009. A good friend of the show, Sergio Rodriguez, who has a phenomenal podcast. I had the pleasure of being a guest on his show. He was here a couple of years back on ours. He kind of made a point where he feels that with the career ERA, only one 20-win season, that perhaps Sabathia is like about as very good as they get, but maybe not quite Cooperstown good. I respectfully disagree with Sergio for a couple of reasons. Number one, he played almost his entire career in the American League during an era where the National League didn't have designated hitters, which means that if you're a Greg Maddux, a John Smoltz, some of the best pitchers that have played in the National League, the late, great Roy Halladay played in both leagues. Point I'm making is, when you have designated hitters that are in the breath of a Big Papi or an Edgar Martinez, just to name, that's the creme de la creme of, DHs. You're not seeing that in the National League during that era. You're facing pitchers, and don't get me wrong, some of these pitchers back then could hit, but it's not the same thing. National League benches were a little less talented, a little less power, so to speak. Whereas, my late father used to always say, you don't start managing in the American League until about the 7th inning, where in the National League, it's a constant chess match. Of course, the playing field is a little different now. You have the DH on both sides. I know that some baseball purists hate that. I personally don't want to see a pitcher getting injured running the bases. We saw that with Chin-Ming Wang, blast from the past.
And he was never the same after that either.
It was terrible, dude. He won 2 consecutive seasons, 19 wins. Real bright spot for the Yankees. Ultimately, he ended up in Washington, and he just flamed out. It was so unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because the dude was a really good ball player.
It went so downhill right after that. It was crazy.
Yeah, but to answer it, I do believe that CC Sabathia is more than deserving. I think that it's I understand the numbers variable, but I also say he pitched in the American League during an era that I already stated. Not to mention, he was a Yankee longer than anywhere else. And if anybody thinks it's easy to pitch in Yankee Stadium, it is not. That is a home run Banty box on certain levels when you consider that it's a lefty's dream, it's a pull hitter's dream. But CC, from a leadership standpoint, a lot of qualities of great Yankee pitchers of yesteryear. I'm talking about even like before our time. Like you're talking about the chairman of the board, Whitey Ford, like that caliber of Yankee pitcher. And I think somewhere in between, you could name drop guys like an Andy Pettitte, a Mike Mussina. From the bully standpoint, I'm not going to put him up there with Bob Gibson, so to speak, but when he had to protect his guys, he did. I don't know if I'm making the best reference if I'm going to name drop Roger Clemens because of all his controversies, but we all know that to this whole Hall of Fame fuckery, Roger Clemens, whether he took a few ass shots or not, was a great pitcher.
Yep.
Barry Bonds, yeah, I get it. He looked like the human bobblehead, and there's so much evidence that he did use some form of a performance enhancer. But I have stressed this so often. Guys that were on the juice or using some kind of competitive edge, it was more about feeling like it was May 1st every day as opposed to the rigors of the season. I'm not excusing the behavior, but this is a league that was saved because of the steroid era. So, hypocrisy galore. I have always said that they only cared when Congress did, but CC Sabathia, in my eyes, is a Hall of Famer, and I am very proud of him. Not just on the field, but also getting some of his stuff cleaned up that he was having personal struggles with. It takes a lot of bravery to overcome some of the things that CC did, and I'm very proud of him for it.
Yep. One more small caveat I'd like to add is, I agree with you. He's deserving of a Hall of Fame ballot. The thing that shocked me the most was first ballot. But I mean, he's a Hall of Famer in my eyes. What really shocked me was like, wow, first ballot, he's in already. All right, good for him. I mean, he's done a lot of right things in his career than wrong. And
yes,
I think that is superior in some perspectives than the numbers. Like if you handle yourself right, you do the right things, you act a certain way, you're more likely to get in than not. I mean, Terrell Owens, here's an example for you. He was a first ballot Hall of Famer, but no, he didn't get until his third nod. I mean, he had the third most touchdown catches in NFL history as a wide receiver. That's a no-brainer. But it's because of his actions off the field that everybody felt that he didn't get in on the first ballot. So
some of it was a little true, and some of it was media made. But the bottom line is, if you're making enemies over the course of your career, whatever sport you play at that level,
yep,
you run the risk of getting dicked around when it's time to get that jacket or get that enshrinement, depending on what sport. Because we also saw it with Randy Moss.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, you look at a guy like Curt Schilling. He's not in the Hall because of a lot of personal beliefs. And whether you want to play the argument of, is he a nice guy? Is he a bad guy? We tried to the best of our ability to grade these people as what they did in the lines. Because if we're talking about good guys and nice guys and genuine guys, I don't think I'm going to be doing a backflip for somebody like an Alex Rodriguez.
He deserves to be in the Hall. I know he's got the same dirt on his name that Clemens and Bonds
absolutely
have.
But I think
the numbers
can't
are there.
And I have a world of respect for a guy like a Big Papi. I think he's a good human. But at the end of the day, he had an immunity situation where he admitted to dabbling into the same stuff that these other guys are getting exiled for, and it's not fair. Because how can I have a Hall of Fame where one of the greatest shortstops of our generation, who made an unselfish move and moved to third because the captain of the Yankees played short, or a guy like a Barry Bonds, whether you like him or not a lot of people like him, you can't not put these guys in the Hall, but yet you're rolling in Scott Rowland. It's egregious.
Come on. And steroids aside, before they even took steroids, they were still Hall of Famers. I mean, performance enhancers. I mean, Barry Bonds was a phenomenal baseball player, and Clemens was the top of his game pitching in the league. And obviously, towards the end of their careers is when Barry Bonds got bigger and quicker all of a sudden as he aged. That was obviously something going on there. But Clemens took it to heel faster, in my opinion, because he was getting older and he wanted to get back on the mound.
I couldn't agree
Like
more.
that.
And then you got the in-betweener, like a guy like an Andy Pettitte, who kind of looked up to Clemens when they had that time together in Houston. Pettitte admitted to dabbling, but he did it with such contrition and such honesty that, there's so many layers to it. But MLB has to have a happy medium. And you got to acknowledge that your sport benefited off of this era. And if you want to put them in a certain wing or just call it what it was, the friggin' steroid era,
right?
Give these guys a chance to do the right thing. Talk to kids that love this game. Talk to kids that are aspiring to get to the next level. Because people can say what they want about Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez is a very knowledgeable baseball man. And when you hear the man talk about baseball, you're going to listen. Roger Clemens, say what you want about him. I know Mike Piazza's not his best fan, but Roger Clemens was a force, man. I'm not even talking about the Yankee days. I mean, he made his name in Boston.
Then in Toronto.
Yeah, he was nasty in Toronto. And let's be real, he was pretty damn good in Houston. And even as an old man, when his second stint with the Yankees, he was still a force.
Yeah, he had a 1 point something ERA that year. Like, it's just crazy.
No, the guy was phenomenal. Definitely a more valuable number 22 than Mr. Ellsbury.
Ugh.
And somewhere in between, Moneybag Soto definitely has to get a name drop off of what he did this past year. But Ichiro Suzuki.
Yeah, Ichiro, over 4,000 hits. I mean, when you combine him with his Japanese career, I mean, he is. I mean, I've never seen a player that had his will, and what I mean by he batted left, and he would just stick his bat out, and he'd be halfway to first before the ball hit the ground. Like he as soon as he swung, he stepped out of the batter's box to go towards first. I mean, what a great strategy, and obviously it paid off for him. The guy was phenomenal.
He could do a little bit of everything. If he had to hit a long ball in a situation, he had that clutch variable. I think the sad thing is, it would have been really cool if the Mariners could have kept A-Rod, Griffey, Ichiro all in that organization at one time. That would have been something special.
Yeah, Griffey, his career just slid because of all the injuries he had, that poor guy.
But absolutely.
Hall of Famer all day.
Couldn't agree more. And if I'm being completely honest, I think the prettiest swing in the history of Major League Baseball.
Just smooth.
I'm on board with you for everything that you say with Ichiro. If he was in the States earlier, he would have broken Pete Rose's record. He was an old rookie. But do you know the power of winning an MVP and a Rookie of the Year in the same season? That is unheard of. Aaron Judge almost did it in 2017.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Well, again, he's another guy that, I mean, handled himself correctly. Like, I don't think you can find a guy that hates Ichiro. Like, why would you hate him? He never did. He was just a all-around humble, very grateful, happy to be their plair. Like there's no reason to hate this guy.
The man loved the game of baseball, and it was a privilege and a pleasure to see him late in his career. And now, granted, this was a dead-end Yankee team.
Yeah,
but it was a fun Yankee team, and it was cool to see him don the pinstripes like some other great Japanese players. Hideki Matsui, a.k.a. Godzilla, comes to mind. But my closing thought on this, fans are never going to be satisfied until you put the best of the best in. And I also think that fans are never going to be satisfied if you're punishing high character guys that maybe didn't have the numbers due to injury, due to not cheating, or in some cases due to death. Of course, I'm talking about guys like Don Mattingly. I'm talking about guys like Thurman Munson. There are others, but those guys need heavy reconsideration. I think as much as I love Mattingly, Munson was before my time, but I think him not being in is even more ridiculous than Mattingly not being in.
Yeah, I think I sent you the meme on Mattingly. arguably the best player in Major League Baseball for a 3-year stint, batting over 300, leading the league in RBIs. Like, it's just, like, it's hard to do in any era to do that for 3 straight years.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yes. No, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
McGuire made a mockery of the whole Roger Maris thing. That's another hypocrisy unto itself. But he was in Oakland. He was getting his his performance enhanced on with Mr. Canseco and
Yes,
others.
He was.
How many All-Star games did he potentially jump Mattingly on? That's something to consider.
Think about that. No, seriously, right?
That's something to consider. They played the same position.
Yep.
They played the same position, but we're going to be moving it along. I wish Zappy was here, but we're going to hit on this briefly and then get into the crust of this show.
Congrats to Billy Wagner for being in the Hall, too.
They are
We skipped Billy Wagner, so yeah.
Billy Wagner.
Well, congrats.
Quick thought on this. I got nothing against the man. I think he is a Hall of Famer. I think when you get nominated is beneficial if you're going to be a first ballot or not. And I'm the furthest thing from a Mets fan. But if you're going to put in Billy Wagner, you need to put in John Franco.
Good pitcher, yeah.
And his postseason numbers leave a lot to be desired, but there's always been this conflict of misinformation or just curiosity about the information. How much do they value the postseason? I question how much they do with certain guys. Because if they value it, Bernie Williams needs to be in.
Correct. Yes. Steadfast Yankee and center fielder his entire career for New York.
There's only 2 center fielders in Yankee lore that are above him. It's Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio.
Who? I don't know those guys.
Yeah, I know. All right. Cowboys fans, they are kind of pissed. They hired Schottenheimer. They let a former Super Bowl winning coach out the door. This is a bargain hire? What are they doing? What is this?
As a non-Cowboy fan, I think it's awesome.
I myself am slightly amused.
But no, if you're a Cowboys fan, I would be upset as well. Believe it or not, those players were playing hard for Mike McCarthy.
I tend to agree.
They could have tanked and just let the season slip away. I mean, it was already gone at that point anyway, but they were still playing hard. That's tough to do, to motivate young guys like that and keep them playing for you in a lost season, right? And they were playing hard for him. Schottenheimer's a first-time head coach. He's got the last name.
And let's be real, Marty was a great guy and a good man and a good coach, but my God, did he have the playoff failures galore?
Yes, he did. Poor Chargers fans.
Yeah, poor Chiefs fans too. Well, not poor anymore.
Yeah, but I was surprised. And if Zappy were here, he would say tank for Ark. Poor guys.
Reasonable. I think the Cowboys, barring a trade up for Shador, that's not happening now because Dion ain't going to be coaching the team. I think Cowboys go running back round 1. I do think they approach my team, possibly even the Cleveland Browns, to see if they can finagle their way into the top 5, top 3. But this is going to be an interesting situation with the Cowboys because you also have to factor in Micah Parsons. Are they going to be able to pay this guy? Are they going to move on from Dak? There are teams that would trade for a Dak Prescott, even though his playoff numbers leave a lot to be desired. It's an interesting situation, and I often tell friends of mine who are Cowboys fans that in so many metrics, they remind me of the bad kind of stuff that the brass of the New York Yankees do, because they are very similar in terms of products. Like the Yankees, whether they suck, whether they're good, you either hate them, you love them, and you're always talking about them. Dallas Cowboys do have that kind of influence as well. Whether you love them, whether you hate them, if you are a football person, you're going to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you're not too fond of them. I don't think, I'm not too fond of them either. I respect them. But the thing is, I have such a burning hatred for Philadelphia that it always trumps anything that I feel for the Dallas Cowboys.
It's fair. Yeah.
But I must admit, my first true heartbreak as a New York Football Giants fan was the Emmitt Smith game, playing for the 1 seed. Lawrence Taylor's final regular season game. That was a classic. But the best team won. It was a changing of the guard kind of moment. But the best team won that day, and it wasn't my team.
Well, to your point about the draft with Dallas, great question. I don't know if the Giants would trade with them, especially interdivision. I mean, the Cowboys would have to give up quite a bit to
It would
move
have
up.
to be the right package, because I spoke to Zappy literally the other day, and I'm doing a lot of mock drafts, and he told me, he's like, bro, you got to base it on getting Shador. Shador's the pick, whether you like it or not. He may very well be right, but I'm not convinced just yet, because
at 3, I don't know if he's going to make it to 3.
He may not. Not to mention, with all the other needs that my particular team has, and you can get an all-world player like a Travis Hunter at 3, an Abdul Carter at 3, because if Giant fans think that Kayvon has played well enough to not have his playing time minimized, you got to think about where you drafted him. Abdul Carter is a game record, and I always tell people this. Getting back to winning culture is getting back to your culture. And every era of Giants football that was worth remembering had 3 pass rushers that can get it done. Abdul Carter opposite of Brian Burns, and you mix in Kayvon, would be devastating.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
And if that man is there, I would take him over Travis Hunter. And then in round 2, you go figure out your quarterback. Maybe a Jackson Dart, maybe not. Last time we went to Ole Miss, it seemed to have worked out rather well.
Yeah, I think you guys will go Kyle McCord if he's there in the second round.
I would not cry if we got Kyle McCord. I think Kyle McCord's going to drop down possibly to round 3, even 4, just because of the stigma of the Syracuse quarterbacks. Now, granted, McNabb had quite a good career, and he came out of the Cuse. But I have a lot of respect for Kyle McCord. I'm curious to see how these GMs and scouts view him.
Top 5 quarterback, I think, because Ewers declared that he moved down the board by 1 spot, but he's like the 4th or 5th highest rated quarterback in the draft, according to the draft experts. Which, what do they actually know? But
because I noticed the trend in these drafts lately is that I think a lot of teams jump too early for quarterbacks, but then there's the other side of the argument where, look at the impact these young quarterbacks have had in the league. You take a guy like a Jaden Daniels,
yes, sir,
a guy that wanted New York, and a guy that New York wanted, but New York won a bunch of meaningless games that prevented them. And you know damn well your division rival isn't going to hook you up with anything.
No.
But the Giants winning some really meaningless games did cost them. Now, granted, his teammate at LSU was drafted.
Neighbors is a talent, man.
Crushing out Odell's rookie numbers.
I said it on the show before the draft. I thought he was a better wide receiver than Marvin Harrison, but Harrison had the last name, so everybody jumped on him. I thought Malik Neighbors was going to be a better talent, and so far, at least statistically wise, he has proven me right.
Yeah, and I think Ladd McConkey definitely surprised quite a few folks, because I think people naturally assumed that Rome Odunze was the 3rd best. But now when you look at what the Chargers have going on, and where they can potentially bring in a DK Metcalf opposite of a Ladd McConkey, and they got the money to pay a salary like that. The Chargers, this was just year 1. It ended in a very abrupt, disappointing fashion, but Harbaugh's got some money now, and the Chargers could really hook up that receiving room and make a real push at the Chiefs. And of course, Denver's going to be interesting. And then you got Tom Brady, who seems to be very, very instrumental in what the Raiders are doing. And that too will be interesting. They hired Pete Carroll. No
spring chicken, bro.
No spring chicken. But a guy who got something that a lot of guys don't get. A 3rd opportunity in the NFL after failing twice. He he wasn't that good with the Jets.
Might have lost Richie there, but I touch on Pete Carroll. I was personally surprised that the Raiders went ahead and took or hired Pete Carroll. He does seem to still have a lot of pump in his step a little bit still. He's very motivated, has a lot of energy. Guy 73, that's up there a little bit. Perhaps he can have a last hurrah, if you will, before retirement. The Raiders are on rebuild mode, and I'm just surprised that even he'd want to be a part of that because it's probably going to take the Raiders a few years just to get out of that. They don't have a quarterback. Their defense is in shambles besides Max Crosby. They don't have a very good running game. Their offensive line isn't very good. Again, it's a rebuilding project, right? So I'm just surprised Pete Carroll wanted a part of that as well, especially again due to his age and stuff, right?
Shed, I apologize. My
You're
mother might not realize that I'm actually doing a show, so she called me quick, and it took me a second to recover. So I'm not sure if you did hear, but I was saying how Pete Carroll. Did that come through?
You right after you mentioned Pete Carroll, you cut out. So then I just picked up and I talked about my thoughts on the Pete Carroll hire.
No, I appreciate that.
You're good.
Third opportunity in the NFL is actually very rare. He obviously did great things with the Seahawks, taking them to consecutive Super Bowls, winning one of them, should have won both of them. When he got hired by the Patriots many years ago, he guaranteed a Super Bowl victory. He ultimately provided that. Of course, as an opponent, he didn't want to give it to Mr. Skittles. Mr. Wilson threw into a sea of 22 men. What could go wrong? I know as a Niner fan, that definitely devastated you. You just couldn't bear it. Unbelievable. They should have went back to back, and it changes the trajectory of legacies and all kinds of other shit.
Sure does. Yeah.
Pete Carroll's a really good coach. I'm just a little intrigued that at this age, he was the go-to. I like Mike Vrabel in New England. He has a better resume than his former teammate, the guy that he replaced. I was disappointed for Mayo. I don't think he had a fair shot.
That was nonsense.
Yeah, but Vrabel is a great coach. That I think we could agree on. And he's never had a quarterback that has the ceiling of a Drake May. So it will be interesting. Ben Johnson, also a reason why Cowboy fans are pissed is because he brought in one of the more popular Cowboy coaches and a guy who might even be more of a loss than Mike McCarthy and, of course, former player turned coach Al Harris. That definitely is stinging Cowboy fans. They are not pleased with that. And it just goes back into that Cowboys discussion. What the hell is going on in Big D? I'm not quite sure.
Jerry's losing it, bud. But that's good for the rest of the league.
Friend of the show, James Bithorn. My boy Dorney posted a pic the other day on Facebook from the New Year's Eve game when we beat Dallas, winning the East and going on that magical Super Bowl run. Our buddy James is a Cowboy fan, and he flat out said, my team loyalty is currently in the transfer portal. That is the kind of substantiality of how pissed off some Cowboys fans are. And I understand it to a level because George Steinbrenner did a lot of great things. But a lot of Yankee fans were in that same boat during the 80s when Steinbrenner was doing a lot of crazy stuff. He was more worried about getting rid of Dave Winfield than he was about putting a winner on the field.
Yeah, they did not. He had
gangsters
like each other.
And goons trying to pick up dirt on Dave Winfield. It just wasn't a very wholesome time in Yankee lore.
Well, I like the Ben Johnson hire for Chicago. I mean, maybe this will be when they can finally turn things around. That poor Bears fan base. Good Lord. Caleb Williams wasn't your pick, boys. Sorry.
I'll tell you what. I like both hires. I think bringing in a guy like Harris, he's going to have that secondary playing at a high level. And it's not just a positional kind of hire. He really structures some good game plans and a very intelligent player. I remember him as a member of the Green Bay Packers, or even the Eagles for that matter. The guy was scrappy. On some metrics, remind me a little bit of a player like a Felipe Sparks, a little undersized, but, all the heart. and just was never afraid to take on anyone regardless of physical attributes. And I think Al Harris is a hell of a hire. Yeah. The one shocker is that Belichick's not back in the NFL. I really, really thought that the hoodie was coming back.
I agree. And one more comment about a new hire. How about Robert Saleh getting hired back as the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers?
I love it.
That defense is going to be a little bit better next year. So we'll
And
see.
once again, Chad, I said it to you recently. I don't think the 49ers' pursuit of Lombardi number 6 is closed on the window. I think it's just a little paused because of, it's been proven time and time again that it is so, so very hard for a first-time quarterback to get back. We're talking about on the losing end of the spec.
Mm-hmm.
Last time it happened was actually Jim Kelly. And he sadly lost 4 in a row. And if there's anybody that didn't deserve to lose 4 in a row, it's Jim Kelly. It's Marv Levy. Those are just great human beings.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, Jim Kelly overcame so much in his personal life, so many different forms of tragedy that it puts it in perspective. And when they say Kelly's strong, that has a ton of meanings, and it's not just based on the football field.
Oh, no, he beat cancer twice, man.
Yeah, man, just
an
easy guy to root for. And, Marv Levy's 99 years old. I am rooting for him because just a true gentleman in every sense of the word, and I would love for him to see his beloved Buffalo Bills hoist one before he transitions into the next realm. He's an old man and a wonderful man at that.
Richie, what's his most famous quote?
His most famous quote?
Marvy Lee, yeah.
Oh, where would you rather be than right here, right now?
I was thinking, I don't want Pro Bowl players. I want Super Bowl players. I love that quote.
I love that quote too. And he often quoted like a lot of pep talks from like historical figures, which I thought was kind of dope. If you haven't, check out the Four Falls of Buffalo. Also check out the Missing Rings on NFL Network. You don't have to be a Buffalo Bills fan to potentially have the eye ducts open. Just a great ineptitude of the Super Bowl, but such a phenomenal team. Nobody's ever been able to go to 4 in a row. So it's interesting on so many levels. We got a couple of games going on. I think it's time to talk about them.
Yeah, why not?
We got the Philadelphia Eagles, my favorites, hosting the Washington Commanders. This is pure hell for a Cowboy or a Giant fan. The Eagles are looking to make their 5th Super Bowl. Yes, their 5th Super Bowl, 2nd in 3 years. They lost a heartbreaker to KC a couple of seasons ago. Year 1, Magic Johnson's in the house. That guy's a winner at everything he does, pretty much. And the Commanders, in 1 short year, have exceeded everyone's expectations. Dan Snyder probably wants to jump off a bridge. I don't mean that literally. I hope not. But, yeah, buddy. This team, just so many leaps. And, it takes a little bit of everything. Inheriting a fourth place schedule does help.
Sure does.
I questioned if they could beat the NFL's better teams. They have proven towards the latter part of the season that, yes, they could. They went into Detroit, took advantage of weaknesses due to injury and due to improper game planning, and they exposed the Detroit Lions. They capitalized on a couple of blueprints that the Green Bay Packers, as well as the Buffalo Bills, put out on how to get over that defense and how to just put up a lot of points in a short amount of time. Jaden Daniels playing like a 10-year veteran. This dude is just going to continue to get better.
He's dropping dimes, man. That throw he had of McLaurin last week. Oh my God! Like you couldn't throw it any better.
The guy's playing out of his mind.
Just insane.
And it's interesting because, on the other side of the thing, you got Hurts, a guy who gets a lot of shit. I personally think that he's playing within the game script. It's no secret that Saquon Barkley is that team's MVP. They changed a lot of how they do things to make him that dude, and it's paid off. He gave him the money. He's comfortable. He's having the best year of his career and easily the best year since his rookie year. But Hurts could do something rather interesting. He can break that curse of being a first-time Super Bowl loser, not being able to get back to the big game. It has not happened, like I said, since Jim Kelly. What the Eagles do at an elite level, man, they run the rock. They are a nightmare to stop in short yardage situations, whether it's the brotherly shove, whether it's putting a two-back set and maybe doing a little draw with Kenneth Gainwell, who is, in my opinion, one of the better underrated backup options at the running back position. We all know what Saquon brings. The guy has just completely put it together. Everything that people say he could and should have been, he has been this year. A.J. Brown, sometimes a little too vocal about his role. He's been playing good football when called upon.
Reading his books, that's all.
Yeah, reading his books. And Howie Roseman, the way that he replenished that secondary.
Best GM in friggin' football.
You got to give it up. And I think John Lynch also deserves to get mentioned. But yeah, Howie Roseman is phenomenal.
So a lot of things you already said. I mean, some things you didn't mention that I guess I'll just tack on is, if you're rooting for Washington here, I mean, you do have great players on that offense. You have Jaden Daniels, you have Brian Robinson, you have Austin Eckler, you have your De'Ami Browns, your Zacchaeuses, your Zach Ertzes. My concern is the defense and the fact that Payne's not playing either on the defensive line, which is a big loss for them.
That is a big loss.
A lot of pressure that he does. I don't know how you're going to stop Saquon Barkley and then have to worry about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and yada, yada, yada. It's just a tough ask. I mean, Washington did beat him in the regular season, but if anybody remembers that game, Hurts got knocked out of the game, and it was Kenny Pickett, who also got knocked out of the game, but later. And Washington ended up winning that game. This is playing in Philly as well. Yikes. It's a tough ask. I'm not saying they don't have a shot, because they do. But, man, that's a lot of things to stop before you can pull off that dub.
Yeah. Your concern is my concern if you're rooting for Washington, which I am. I do not see them truly being able to slow down the rushing attack led by Saquon Barkley. They did vocalize that if they are going to use Hurts in running back situations, that they're going to hit him like a running back. And I get it. It's the NFC East. You want to talk it. But I'm a firm believer in not giving extra bulletin board material. I like the Eagles today for one simple reason. They've been there. This is not unfamiliar territory for this particular Eagles team. And Dan Quinn, great first year as Washington's head coach. And as much as it pains me to say this, because I cannot stand Nick Sirianni's sound bites, I think that in a game like this, he is going to shine. He is going to shine. I really mean that. I think the Eagles are just a superior team. And even before the Lions were knocked out, I think the Eagles have proven time and time again that they are the best team in this conference this particular year.
Mm-hmm.
Too much Saquon, too much experience, and a better roster, in my opinion. But the Commanders have a lot to be proud of. Give me the Eagles 34. Give me the Commanders 24.
Wow. And another comment that you made that I really liked was the experience factor. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
With the lights on the stage here. I mean, Terry McLaurin has been in the league a while, but he hasn't been to a playoff game like this before.
Never been in a game this big in his life. Now, Zach Ertz brings some of that big-time experience.
He sure does. And he's probably they're going to look to him to be the leader in this game, as much as Jaden Daniels is the natural leader of the team. But Zach Ertz has that experience factor.
Also want to shout out Bobby Wagner. He's been in these kind of games.
Sure. Yeah.
But he's going to have to really
he's lost a step or two,
level.
but he's still pretty good. But yeah, I agree with you. I like Philly to win, though, just like you. I will be rooting for the Washington Commanders. And I like Philly to win 30 to 27.
It'll
be close.
So you got this thing real close.
Yeah. But Philly's
All right.
home. I mean, yeah.
And you
fan
know,
base.
even before the Commanders started getting good, they did have a propensity for playing Philly to a lot of one-score games. So it wouldn't shock me. It truly
and that's
wouldn't
part of the
shock
reason
me.
it's going to be. I think it's going to be close is because they're division rivals. All division games within reason are always very hard fought. So I just don't expect it to be like 45-10 or some like crazy number blowout. Like I think it'll be close.
And a little fact drop here. Last time that two NFC East teams played each other for the rights to go to the Super Bowl, you got to go all the way back to the 1986 season when the New York Giants hosted the then Washington Redskins. Joe Gibbs versus Bill Parcells. You talk about two of the greatest coaches to ever do it. The wind played such a factor in that Parcells chose to go into the wind to start the game, and that strategy turned out to be genius. But, I mean, you talk about chess matches. And, Joe Gibbs, a head coach who won 3 Super Bowls with this organization with 3 different quarterbacks. Joe Gibbs was phenomenal. And even his second act coming back during the Sean Taylor era and bringing back respectability to that organization.
Yep.
It's good for football. It's good to see the NFC East in something this important. Granted, it's not my team involved. I still am proud of my division, even though I hate one of these teams and the other team is a rival. I don't hate the Commanders. My team has not beaten any team more than the Commanders. But having said that, these fans have waited a very long time. And however it shakes up, they have a lot to look forward to next year.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to move it along. Can the Buffalo Bills finally beat the big bad wolf? The Chiefs are 16-2. The Bills are 15-4. Josh Allen. I don't know if he's going to edge out Lamar for the MVP. I think Buffalo was very fortunate to win last week when you consider the Mark Andrews mishaps. The midfield one really stands out to me more so than actually the drop. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Lamar Jackson being the leader that he is, even mic'd up while it's happening in real time, talking to his guys saying, we win as a team, we lose as a team, trying to uplift his brother Mark Andrews in a very low time. You got to admire Lamar for that. And also, in my opinion, for the class that he showed in defeat. I respect Lamar quite a bit, and I think his stock actually rose despite losing yet another heartbreaking playoff game.
You can't blame Mark Andrews for that game. I mean, I know the drop, of course, but Lamar had 2 turnovers.
Absolutely.
3 turnovers.
Absolutely. And to his point, yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, they shouldn't have put themselves in that position to begin with. So I don't hold Mark Andrews accountable for that, but that's just my opinion.
Things are going to happen. If you're looking for one play or one call, then you didn't do enough. And I think we both agree on that. Josh Allen's also been on the wrong side of a lot of the heartbreaks, and none more than against the team and the guy he's playing against. If you're a Bills fan, Shed, are you a little alarmed about how close the Bills were to not putting away Baltimore last week, given all the opportunities, or do you think Baltimore's more talented than KC and maybe this is the Bills' time?
Kansas City didn't have a better script, right? Houston, within reason, didn't have much of a shot in Kansas City, but that was proven wrong. They actually did have a shot in Kansas City, but the calls didn't go their way. But I would have, like, the Chargers going to Kansas City would have had a better shot to beat them. So they're playing them. And then now you have the Bills and the Ravens playing each other to knock one or the other off. Because both of those teams can beat Kansas City.
I tend to agree.
And they're going to play each other. So if I'm a Bills fan, am I concerned? No. Bills played within reason, a soundproof game. Like, they played great.
They made the big plays. They made the plays that they haven't been making the past few playoffs.
Yep. And going into Kansas City should not bother them, in my opinion. I think that they're going to be well aware of the fan base and the temperatures and all that fun stuff. It's just going to be Buffalo versus the Kansas City Chiefs, the referees, and the fact that they're home. So that's 3 factors that it's 3-1. That's tough for any team. Tough to ask any team to go into Kansas City and beat them.
No, indeed. And the record speaks for itself. They are money in that stadium. I think every quarterback, every great one, has this very real moment of truth when you take your game to a different place. We saw it with Josh Allen in the unfortunate overtime fiasco that ultimately changed the rules.
Sure did.
I truly believe that this is going to be Josh Allen's finest hour. I think he's going to elevate not only his play, but the play of those around him. I think we're going to see an Amari Cooper sighting today. This is going to be a phenomenal game. If the Chiefs win again, it would be so crushing on so many levels. And the reason why the Chiefs always win, other than the stuff you mentioned, it is that superior coaching. It's Steve Spagnuolo, in my opinion, the best defensive coordinator in the NFL.
I agree. Yep.
This man shut down the greatest offense of all time when in New York. He has done it time and time again with these Chiefs. And then you have a guy like Andy Reid who continues to beef up the resume that could potentially go down as the greatest coach in NFL history. Whether we agree on it or not is not the point. The fact that it's being considered says a lot, because prior to being the coach of this franchise, he did a hell of a job with Philly, but needed to win the big games. And he has done that in Kansas City. Of course, there's a lot of variables. You have one of the greatest tight ends of all time who's winding down his career. Some people feel Patrick Mahomes might be the greatest of all time. I don't believe that, but a lot of people do.
Of course they do.
Not yet, anyway.
You made a point off air about some of the flopping that we have seen with Mahomes. Most recently, 2 Houston Texans knock each other out of the play. There's a flag, no contact to Mahomes. He didn't even properly give himself up. The NFL is going to be going to the competition committee in the offseason to try to rectify some of this caca. But I will say this. Every quarterback in history, whether it's Dan Marino, whether it's Tom Brady, and many in between, do complain to the refs. That's nothing new.
Correct.
But this kind of stuff is the kind of stuff that can taint your legacy no matter how many rings you have on your hand. And
Go ahead.
From a talent-based standpoint, Patrick Mahomes is phenomenal. Not many can do the stuff that he can do on a football field. But this has to be eliminated from the game because it's hurting the game.
It is. He's the LeBron James of the NFL, right? The LeBron James flopping and changing the game. And look at the NBA has the worst ratings ever. It's because people don't like the product. If people don't like the product, they're not going to watch. I mean, it's just like if you have a dog in the fight, if you're not a Chiefs fan or a Bills fan, and you know that the Chiefs are going to end up winning because the refs are going to give them the call that's going to make the difference in the game, why are you even going to watch? You know the Chiefs are going to win, so people just won't watch. I mean, the product is just not the same. There needs to be
and it's a very dangerous thing because the NFL is so popular and you want to keep it there and you don't want to run the risk. With soccer continually growing, with MLB doing a better job of promoting their game and those ratings are going up, you got to be careful if you're the NFL. You really do. I personally think they're going to figure out a way to rectify some of this because too many fans are showing their displeasure. We don't want flag football. We need to find a happy medium. As this game goes, it's no secret that I think you got to give the Chiefs the edge on the coaching. No knock on McDermott. I think he's done a lot this year, but you still got to give it to them. Now, as the rosters go, I think you could make a logical argument that the Bills might have the better roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's close. You might even say all-around quarterback, the Bills have a better quarterback.
I completely agree with that statement. I mean, you lose a guy like a Stephon Diggs, and I feel that Josh Allen has elevated his game because it's not that extra pressure to constantly fit a ball into one guy. He's spreading the ball everywhere. I think James Cook this year, younger brother of Dalvin, has really, really grown as a running back. I also kind of like the extra burst that they get from Johnson. And like I said, I'm feeling an Amari Cooper sighting today. I think Khalil Shakir is gradually turning into one of the better slot options in the league. And they have 2 quality tight ends. You know, this Bills team, the last couple of years, there's a lot of reasons why they haven't won. I know people are worried about Tyler Bass being a little shaky, giving people the Norwood nightmares. But I think defensively, going back to the year that DeMar Hamlin, you know, had that situation, their defense looks better right now than they have in a long time because they are finally healthy.
Yeah, the Chiefs still have Chris Jones. I mean,
he's a game wrecker.
Yeah, you just said it. That dude. He gets double teamed and still gets in the backfield. I really think that Buffalo's going to have to run the ball and be successful at it.
They have to,
in order to have a decent shot in this game. I still, I mean, to some of the variables I already mentioned with, the Chiefs being home, the Chiefs themselves as a team, the fan base, the referees. I'm pulling a Mike Zappi until I'm proven otherwise. I'm picking the Chiefs to win. I like Kansas City to take this game 24-20.
Oh, I hope not. I think you got one part right. I do see a 24 on this thing. It's Buffalo's time today. They are going to finally overcome the team that has kept them down for far too long. I think Josh Allen really earns his stripes today. And this will set up a cool little thing with the Eagles and the Bills. Are the Bills going to really lose to the entire NFC East? Are the Eagles going to be the only NFC team that didn't beat the Bills in the big game? Give me the Buffalo Bills in dramatic fashion. We're going to overtime again, folks. Circle the wagons. 30-24 in favor of the Buffalo Bills and many of the greats like the Bruce Smiths, the Thurman Thomases, Metzelaars. My God. Scott Norwood.
Don Beebe.
Don Beebe,
Kenny
who was fortunate
James
enough to
Lofton.
get a ring with Green Bay. He was fortunate enough to win with Green Bay. Don Beebe is the reason the Dallas Cowboys don't have the highest point output in a Super Bowl because he doesn't give up.
Yeah.
And the Bills don't give up. And their fans don't give up. I am a devout New York Giants fan, but I do have a lot of respect for the pain that this organization and their fan base has gone through for so many years. They are very deserving of this. And I think today Josh Allen is going to do something that those before him couldn't do. And I think it's going to lead to the team's first Super Bowl victory ever in a couple of weeks.
If the Bills are in the Super Bowl, I'm moving to Florida.
Hey, watch the game with me, bro.
Yeah, good Lord, bud. it'll be something. It'll be something. Time. Oof.
Give me the Bills 30-24. And who's going to take in the game-winning score? Who do you think? Josh Allen. With the legs. Yeah, at least that's what I'm hoping. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like to see the Commanders and the Bills, but I already stated that I don't see the Commanders beating Philly. Bills, Philly, Super Bowl. And I'm telling you right now, if the Philadelphia Eagles lose to the Buffalo Bills, I don't care what toilet bowl my franchise is in right now. The trolling will be absolutely epic because we already have fun that they only have that one Lombardi. But this would be beyond fun to be the only team to not beat the Bills on Super Sunday after that 4-year horrific stretch. I like it. People are like, oh, don't you want the Eagles to lose now? I'm like, I always want the Eagles to lose. But I would much rather have them lose on the grand stage. I want the whole world to see it.
Philly will burn down their city again because that's the kind of classless fans they are. They burn their city down if they win. They burn it down if they lose. So if I lived in Philly, I wouldn't want them to get there.
Eat horse shit until I did. That really happened.
Oh,
all right. Okay. Final thought here. I want to give a shout out to these two young fellas. Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson becoming the first Knicks duo since the mid-'70s to be starters in an all-star game. That is crazy when you consider some of the talent that has come through MSG. I personally think this would have happened years ago if Bernard King didn't abruptly have his career ruined with the injuries. He and Patrick Ewing, not only do I believe, could have made a ton of all-star games together. Ewing had his fair share. But I also think that possibly NBA history could have been a little different because during the beginning of the Michael Jordan ascension, there was a fella named Bernard King who I don't think too many people realize how great of a scorer he truly was. And if you're an NBA fan during that era of Knicks basketball, the one thing that Ewing didn't have until he was way too old was that second legitimate scorer. And, you know, against those phenomenal Chicago Bulls teams, it most definitely hurt his chances of winning that elusive championship. I think it's too early right now to completely buy some of the teams in the NBA that are surprising folks. I mean, I think it's pretty cool what the Houston Rockets are doing right now. And I think it's equally cool when I look at what the Cleveland Cavaliers are doing. But similar to how you feel, I'm not going to bet against the Chiefs. As much as I don't like this team, I'm not going to bet against the Celtics. When the pressure's on and we talk about experience, I still think the Boston Celtics are the team to come out of the East. I think the West is a little more hard to figure this particular season, but I really do like the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think last year was invaluable experience that they needed to get to that next level. Of course, I would love to see my team and the OKC Thunder. But the issue I take with the Knicks, there's two things, and I've said it on many shows. I think Tom Thibodeau beats his guys down a little too much, and I don't want to see my team break down at the most critical time next year. And I believe that, unfortunately, if we don't make a proper trade to bring in a bona fide veteran that can contribute right away on that bench, the Knicks run the risk of having the same fate as last year, just running out of juice. But Karl Anthony Towns, it was a great trade. Best big man to wear a Knicks uniform since Patrick Ewing. And you got to shout out, you know, guys like Camby, guys like Tyson Chandler. But we'll see, man. This is where you do miss a guy like a Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah, Dante is a big loss. He's playing well, too.
Now, I know you support the Miami Heat. Before we get out of here, what are your thoughts on Jimmy Butler?
Get him out of here. Just get him out of here.
It's awful, man.
It's like little kids, dude. It's exhausting.
Yeah, and you know the Godfather ain't going to put up with that shit. Pat Riley will send him packing.
No. Yep.
Enjoy
Deuces.
championship weekend. Shouts out to the bride, Holly Victory. We'll be getting married today, soon to be Holly DeViva. Holly, I love you to death, baby girl. But you couldn't have got married during the Pro Bowl. I'm just kidding. I'll be there. And I'm looking forward to having a really good time with Jen and Noah at your wedding. Congratulations in advance, guys. I'm looking forward to attending. If you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Shed, as always, a pleasure. Great job today.
Thank you.
And enjoy the games, man.
I'll be having a couple, watching the games, enjoying it.
And if Buffalo does indeed advance, you are more than welcome to post up here for a little bit and we can watch the Super Bowl together. Maybe we'll get Brett over. Maybe we'll grill. See if we can fly in Zappy too. Get Idris out here.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy today's games. Buffalo, Philly. That is my final word. We shall see how it plays.